Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Astrology and Beyond. Today with your host, Tatiana, also broadcasting for ANN, Archetypal News Network. And today I would like to talk about eclipses. In particular, the eclipse that is happening tomorrow, October 14th, which is a solar annular eclipse in Libra. And what I'd like to bring to you today is a little bit of the stream of consciousness that I've been perceiving and getting archetypally, obviously from looking at the eclipse chart, but also the nature of the times and in my own life and what I see around me, how this eclipse could be impacting our lives. And let's get something straight. Eclipses happen every year. It's not like, oh, an eclipse is happening. Ah, not necessarily. The eclipse happen every year. Twice a year, we have eclipse season. And this is when the new moons and full moons are close to the nodal, to the nodes, either south node or the north node. So that's when we have the eclipse season. This is essentially new moons and full moons that are like powered by mega amounts of energy. Now, why is this particular eclipse kind of a big deal? It's because of the astrological aspects that are occurring at the same time. Is the way things are looking right now point towards a big shift or transformation, because we have been having these eclipses in Libra. Well, I can tell you a little bit. Let me look at my data. So eclipses in Libra happened so the last solar eclipse in Libra happened in October, on October 3rd, 2005. So if you go back to 2005, you would go, okay, what was happening during that time of my life, right? There was a lunar eclipse in Aries, so we're talking about the nodal axis, on October 17th of 2005. So those were the two eclipses back in 2005. So think about what was that about for you, that time, that period of time, October 2005. And then the other two eclipses in the Libra axis, nodal axis, were March 14th, 2006, and a solar eclipse. Then the solar eclipse was in Virgo, September 22nd of 2006. So basically, the eclipse season of 2005-2006 was the time that could potentially resemble some of the themes that are going to be operating this time around. However, this time around, as we know, everything is like a spiral that is always evolving. There are new things added. There's more information, and this is why this particular eclipse it's very potent. So let's talk a little bit about what an eclipse is, so we're aware of what is that. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me see. Here it is. So an eclipse is essentially this particular solar eclipse. I'm going to talk about a solar eclipse is when the moon gets in between the earth and the sun. So the sun rays are essentially blocked by the moon. This particular eclipse is an annular solar eclipse, and that means, and the moon, it's the furthest away from Earth possible. So there is a little bit of a ring of fire around it, or like a glow around around the blocked sun, essentially. So this is what is happening. This is a solar eclipse. So what it looks like in the chart, it's a new moon. As you can tell, it's a conjunction of the sun and the moon. So it is a new moon. And like I said before, it's when these new moons or full moons happen near the node. So you see here is the south node in Libra, and at 21 degrees is the new moon. The south node is at 24 degrees of Libra. Eclipses are considered eclipses 16 degrees from the nodes. It's an eclipse. So that's when you have partial or total eclipses, when the closest the event happens to the nodes, the more it would be considered a total. The furthest is partial. So well, this is just like the technical information now, getting that out of the way. So you understand, oh, this is what's happening. Especially if you're new to astrology and you don't understand much, at least I'm giving you a little bit of an overview of what an eclipse is. Now, why is this eclipse a little bit of a big deal? It's also because it has these inconjuncts of Neptune and Uranus. You see this green line that points like this, like an arrow. This is called a yod, or the finger of God pointing. So what is this pointing to? To the eclipse itself, which means that we need to look at something that it's very, very, very prominent. And this is more than a personal thing, it's an evolutionary force. The transpersonal planets, Uranus and Neptune and Uranus, move the consciousness, move the collective consciousness, more so at a general level of evolution than at a small personal ego level of evolution. So we might feel that whatever is being asked of us at this time is so that bigger forces can come through. Now, what is tricky with these inconjuncts or these yods is the adjustment to the energies of these outer planets. And by adjustment, I mean, what does this inconjunct mean between Uranus and Neptune and the sun and the moon? So I've got my favorite book here, you know, Archetypal Universe by Ren Butler. And I'd like to read a little bit of what could be felt in these inconjuncts at a global level. So for the Sun, Moon, Neptune triad, it could be tendencies towards weakness and impressionability, self-delusion or confusion, religious imbalances, impractical fantasies, esoteric pretensions, strange or camouflaged types of egotism, spiritual inflation. These are certain topics that could appear when we have these more challenging aspects, where we could be dreaming a utopia that, if we don't actualize clearly with concrete actions in ourselves, then just stays in a utopia. And then we can be very disappointed with reality. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And the Sun, Moon, Uranus would be something like willful eccentricity and unpredictability, an unwillingness to cooperate or compromise with others, ongoing extremes of emotion and behavior, sudden changes and disruptions. So these are a few themes that could come up with these forces pulling the being into wanting to free oneself, because the reason why this appears is there is a desire for more personal or individual freedom. That is essentially part of the Aries Libra axis, is a desire for more personal freedom, taking into account that Uranus is aspecting this the eclipse. It's like, how do we integrate our personal desires, the changes that are imminent in our lives, the values, what we value that is important to ourselves, and also make it work with others. And this has been an ongoing theme. The host of this eclipse is Venus, because Venus is the ruler of Libra. So Venus in Virgo will be try to very with a big magnifying glass looking at what is not working in our relationships, essentially, or not even the relationships, the way we relate to others. There is something kind of important as well. It's not to be caught again in the delusion of a utopian reality, but be very grounded in what we need, what actions we need to take to be truly spiritual beings, which is here now, confronting what we need to confronting the elephants in the room, because sometimes there's elephants in the room and we're like, la, 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 not there. I'm not seeing the elephant, not there. And the idea here is, okay, if we have strain in relationships, if we've been dealing with conflict, and if we have difficulties with any kind of relationships, Libra is about the harmony. It's about finding harmony in relationships. And if we have been doing relationships inharmoniously, this is the time where this eclipse is asking us to look at that, and look at that with a magnifying glass and say, these patterns or behaviors of possibly the shadow side of Libra, which is people pleasing, which is not being very, not finding definition in what it's important to the self, or being caught up in everybody else's ideas of you, and be indecisive. That's all shadow of Libra. Indecision, people pleasing, too much also some at certain layers it could be also being too superficial, and also the imbalance, which is interesting because Libra, the shadow of Libra, is also where there is imbalance. Libra is always trying to find balance, and Venus, its host, is always trying to find grace, beauty, harmony. Is bringing in that energy that is that wants to create fairness as well. Libra is about fairness. It's about equality, fairness, equal opportunity, and justice. So all these themes that could include legal issues for some of you will be coming up for review very strongly. And the South Node means that these are things that we really need to look at and let go of. So if we have been doing relationships, either this could be two ways of looking at it. If we have been doing relationships very selfishly, basically always just looking at ourselves, this is what I want, what I need, very much in this Aries side of life, and not being considerate, mindful of others, or including others within your context and your reality, but very self-absorbed, this eclipse could be very disruptive to that kind of behavior, because it shows an imbalance. It's only me, completely polarized. So we might see even further polarization. And conversely, if you've been only focusing on others and you never take stock of what is really truly important for you, what could happen is that the imbalance gets shown as well. Like, look, you have been only people pleasing and not looking at what's truly important to your essence and your being. So that imbalance will always be will also be shown. What happens also in eclipses at a more philosophical level? Eclipses are like portals of energy. And I had my spiritual mentor, Laura, who is an amazing being and channeler. She gave me a beautiful analogy. Imagine there is a dam, and the water is going to be let out in massive amounts, massive. So during an eclipse, it is energetically, it is advised to not to be more centered and aware of the self than trying to initiate new things right away in your energy, do rituals or anything that is like, you know, like, oh, there's a portal, therefore let's do all this intention setting on the portal. It's not a good idea, because the energy, it's a new influx of energy. So if we're doing there, it's like standing right there where the water is about to hit, and then you can be just swept in all kinds of directions. What would be important is to be on the sidelines, wait until the eclipse passes before taking any actions, either with your energy, with people. The other thing that can happen in eclipses, and this is from an astrological perspective, and it's that when the light of the sun is blocked, it's the metaphor that the light of consciousness has been temporarily disconnected. So there is a switch, it disconnects, and the light of consciousness of the divine is temporarily disconnected. So what we see is just all the darkness, all the disconnection that we can have. Basically, all our patterns, things might surface, all the shadow surface. So we're left alone in the dark for the spirit of time with no consciousness. So what happens when we're not aware of this? We might just act very impulsively, or and we're seeing this in the world already, you know, with the previous new moons, full moons, and during the spirit of time, the early weeks of October, we have seen in the world such horrors, to say the least. You know, what with things happening in Israel and all the conflict over there. We'll still have the war in Ukraine. Like, there's so much disruption in the world, and we could go on and on and on about all the conflict. And this is again conflict, the people against people. This eclipse will only highlight that more. What happens when people against people just keep being against, and there's no way to resolve, and there's no movement forward to resolve? Then we have complete disharmony, and we can have breakups, disruption, maybe unnecessary or maybe necessary, again, readjustments to get the balance back. And before we can get that balance back, we need to see what is causing the imbalance. And this is what this eclipse is about. We will see all the elephants in the room. And those who want to take action, a concrete action, are the ones who will benefit mostly of what the eclipse is asking. What's on the other side of the eclipse is the potential for harmony, is the immense potential to find new solutions for our relatability with one another. And what is very important is to understand that being caught in our own ways too much, the Aries polarity, without any consideration also for others, it's not going to create any movement forward. So I did this beautiful workshop of coping mechanisms last week, almost like pre-eclipse, to understand what are my coping mechanisms, and what is the coping mechanisms of the people around me, so we can see each other better. And this fabulous psychologist, her name is Carolyn, and I love her to pieces. She's amazing, Dr. Carolyn Nesbitt. She brought forward some material that was very interesting, where we looked at self, other, and context. Why am I bringing all this up? Because this is exactly what this eclipse is about. Look at yourself. What are your essential needs or intrinsic needs of your soul, of your being? Not necessarily your ego needs that are delusions, right? For a lack of a better word, is what we believe reality to be. But our soul needs, when you connect to your essence, you will find that your essence has a purpose here. First, so self. Then we look at other. When we're able to see the other and not be completely self-absorbed in our own essence, this is what I want, what I need, and this is me, and this is could be closely related to narcissism, because a narcissist would only probably see themselves, and it's not like a bad thing. I'm not trying to say that that is a bad thing. I'm trying to say that that exists as a way of existing, of coping, or of being. Is I only see myself. I can't see others. I can't relate too much to the context. I just see myself. And therefore, there is not a true connection to what others could be feeling, needing, or wanting. And that could create immense amounts of power struggles. Right? And again, I'm using a strong word, narcissism, but it doesn't even have to be that. It could only be, it could also be just being too self-absorbed in oneself. So not seeing the other, basically, at all. And then there is the other. What happens when we're always pleasing the others, that we completely forget ourselves? And then there's the context. The context is it's basically where what we have created as our existent situation. A context can be a family context. It can be the context of a social context, and it could also be a global context. So context is like little circles that expand, but you have a specific context very close to you, and this is a little bit part of the context that is being talked about, is the context you're living in. Are you also taking into account what imbalances are being created because of this context? And how do you fit in this context, or your context, with others and with self, and how you can create harmony and balance? The global context, which would be more shown by the presence of the transpersonal planets, which is this also Pluto. Again, we're going to mention Pluto again, once again, because Pluto, it's still squaring the nodes. It's not as tight of a square. It's also almost leaving that square. So we might feel that presence again of that need to see where we are either disempowered, or where we are being where we are acting out a behavior out of a need to control something or someone. And we might see this at a personal level with our own dynamics, our own, let's say, power struggles with others. And the best thing to do here is to see, where am I not relinquishing control? That could be as simple as that. At a macro level, we might see, again, larger context, again, this push to move forward with the demolition of the top to bottom structures, where power over is no longer what the evolution needs. Is power with, or empowerment with it, which is it's a web. We are all empowering each other. That is at one of the interpretations of the macro level. So because this, we are seeing all the remnants and the last of what power, how dynamics in top to bottom structures, whether it is socially, or even in our families or our close relationships. That could even be a relationship with someone where somebody is always trying to squish another person just to get their own way. That could even be that. Those things are the ones that are going to shine. And this is going to be maybe very difficult or uncomfortable for some people. Especially if you have planets, personal planets around the eclipse point. So this is in around the 21st degree of Libra. around the 21st degree of Aries, around the 21st degree of Capricorn and Cancer, because this is where we would find the energies are squaring, meaning there is tension. So if you have personal planets in any of those points, you might feel that this is speaking to you, and some adjustment in relationships and values, also value, because we've been talking about Venus as the ruler of the eclipse. And whenever we have Venus themes, we have values. And this is probably, what do you value in relationships? I would say more than what you value as things. It's more what is essential to you, for you to feel that you can be in harmony with others. What is essential to you? And how can you stretch towards others so that you can find people that are more in tune with you? And this is where we're going to see when people are vibrating in a certain frequency and other people are vibrating in a different frequency, this might create such dissonance that this will eventually dislodge. And we'll start tuning in to people that are vibrating more at our own frequency. So this is why this eclipse is not just about reviewing our relatability. It's also reviewing if the people that are around us support our evolution and our state of being. And there's many possibilities. People can actually change drastically during these moments, because there could be immense crisis, and the crisis can create immense breakthrough. And when the breakthrough happens, we can see ourselves, or we can completely change our identity or the way we have been seeing ourselves and others. That could happen like this. It's a catalyst. That's why eclipses, when they bring this amount of energy and we'll let it flood, the other end is a massive push. It's a massive push where we can actually transform parts of ourselves, our psyche, and therefore our collective. And if we could imagine a much more fairer world where relationships are much more harmonious, then we would see less need for war, less need for appropriation, less need for you versus me. We would see less of that, because there would be, again, a more connected sense of self and spirituality. Now, the tricky part with this yod is to define spirituality or spiritual pursuits or as true, not as the old ways of doing spirituality, which could look, and I'm going to say, very fluffy on the outside. We have all these rituals and kumbaya, and then the thing and the feather and the over there, and we're going to get together and take all these concoctions and whatnot, and then create utopia here. But it's not really grounded in, look at your fellow human. They're in suffering. Can you see and try to understand why they're in suffering, and have some empathy for that being, and create a true connection? That, to me, is more a grounded spirituality than all the kumbaya things that we can do, which are lovely. I love doing that stuff, by the way, don't get me wrong. I love rituals and paraphernalia that helps anchor the sense of, of doing something meaningful, but that is not necessarily needed at this moment. This is why that in conjunct to Neptune could also feel like we need to adjust the way we are doing our spiritual practices, whatever that looks like. Because we can be meditating all day long and be, I do all this meditation every day, but then the minute that something happens with somebody, boom, you lash out, then out the window goes the meditation. Similar, I go to church every day, every Sunday, I'm in church and I'm doing my worship or whatever. The minute that you have a conflict, out the window. So this is why this is going to have to be like a little bit of a sobering moment. Also, because the sobering also comes from Saturn being still in an opposition to Venus, because Venus is the host of this eclipse. The sobering is, again, your relationships might be strained, might be difficult. Look, It's not going to be easy. It's just going to be grow up. This is what Saturn asks. Be committed to growing up and seeing relationships. And that the beauty of this aspect is that when we do take accountability for how we are relating to others, not by blaming them or pointing fingers, but by how we behave in our relationships, and we take stock of that, what happens is that the new connections that get created could be very long lasting. This is what Saturn always brings to the table. Now, conversely, we can find that relationships that have been stagnant, this is it. This eclipse will completely move them away, and a whole new beginning can start. Let's not forget that this is a new moon. This is a new moon. This eclipse is a solar eclipse, but it's a new moon. So it's like a big beginning. And the beginning could be physically you moving away to another situation, you removing yourself from a relationship, and this new energy or new reality that is being created supports better your evolution. Or it can be you're still within your same context with the same people, but there is an evolution inside your own being that helps you move up into a different way of seeing your own reality, or a different way of seeing your context, whether it is your immediate context or your global context. There might be a very different way. You might feel that you're a complete different person when you have these things going. Now, let's remember that as much as an eclipse is a one-day event or a couple hours event, its effects begin before the eclipse, and this is why these themes have been already introduced, and people who have been doing already some work around these topics might not even feel this eclipse as strong, because you've been already previously working on yourself, working on your relationships, trying to build harmony and looking at the difficult things. If you've been doing that, great for you, because then you might not even feel this as strongly. And the effects of an eclipse last for 6 months. The development of this eclipse is 6 months. So we might start seeing the changes in our relationships and our dynamics, and feeling how the new levels of harmonization occur within the next 6 months. But that can only happen if we are responsible for our own participation in relationship. So this is essential. And also, the other part that is important to look at is that Chiron is conjunct the North Node, or it's in a loose conjunction. I wouldn't say it's conjunct, but it's approaching, let's say, the conjunction. So there might be a tint of that that fear of what if I dare to be myself, and what I truly, the courage, do I have the courage to be myself and still be accepted and loved within groups, or maybe by another? Will I be loved if I truly commit to myself and my journey? What if I don't fit in? And so that fear will come up as well. But part of the evolution is to take that courageous step into being true to yourself before putting others before you. Be true to yourself, and then with your cup full, then you can spread your love and your light to others. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You're always going to be compromising, and compromise, what does compromise do? Compromise can only build more resentment and grow the elephant. Compromise is just making sure that elephant keeps growing. When the fundamental needs of people are met at all levels, and we find the right strategies to meet them, and the right people that can help us meet our needs and our own capacity to meet our needs, when that is there, then we can have harmony. And this is from Marshall Rosenberg, from Nonviolent Communication. I've talked about this extensively in my previous videos, but I bring it back in case you have not seen this or you have not heard this before. It's like when people's deep needs, which are, we all have the same needs for love, appreciation, beauty, connection. There's a long list of needs that you can even just look up online, from Marshall Rosenberg. When we all have those needs met at a fundamental level, we see that we're no different from the other. No one is really different. We all have the same fundamental human needs. And the tragedy comes when there are unmet needs and one person or people or tribe or country or nation gets the short end of the stick. So at a macro level, we have been seeing these dynamics that have been going on in several countries where there are these extreme polarizations, because it seems like someone's always going to get the short end of the stick, and there seems to not be any possibility of agreement. And that happens in relationships as well. So this is why Libra, this eclipse, is going to try and get us back to how can we not get the short end of the stick, still be within a context that makes sense, and be ourselves fully embodied. That's the way I can completely sum it up for you. And if all the rest, blah, 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 that I talked about was too much, this summary is all you need to take away from this video and from this new phase. So again, try to stay centered and calm during these times. If you feel super triggered by situations, I would recommend you do things like take deep breaths, maybe tell the person that you're having the conflict with, or the people, say, I need to be by myself a little bit to process this. And if you feel that you need support, find support from maybe a professional or even a friend that you trust, before lashing out on others, before creating more disharmony, and before just exploding and breaking, like how do you call that, breaking bridges that is unnecessary to break. So during these times, which is essentially this weekend, I would say stay as calm, as focused as you can. Do exercises for yourself. What I mean with that is look at yourself more than looking at others, in the sense, don't project too much of yourself on others, because what could happen also during this eclipse is that we receive a lot of projections, from everybody else about what they believe us to be like. So in this case, always come back to yourself. Take the time to analyze, like Venus in Virgo. It's great because it will take out everything that's not needed. It will classify, it will make sure that that you're really valuing what's essential and important. Virgo is about essential things. It's not about lofty and shiny and big, and it's about essential things that make life work. So what's not making life work, this is what you need to be focusing on. Okay, I think I've talked a lot about this eclipse. There's so much more that we could talk about, but this is starting to be really long, and I think you get the gist of it. So please let me know in the comments below how you have been living these past couple weeks coming into this eclipse, and if any of these themes that I'm talking about applies to you, and in what way. Also, because each person has a different area of life where this eclipse will be happening. So because it's in Libra, you might want to look at where your Libra house is in your chart. And that area of life is the area of life where the relationships are being questioned. The people that nourish that area of life, or even the patterns that you have maybe in relationship to yourself. Like there's a myriad of ways of interpreting it depending on what house this falls for you. And so that's more like a specific thing. So if you'd like to know those specifics, please feel free to look down in the description box below, and you can find me and I can help you move through these difficult times, or maybe times of crisis if this is your case. And we can do a reading for you. You'll see all my offerings are below in the description box below. You can find my website, tatianahassan.com. And if you like this video, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. I love you. Thank you for listening, for sticking all the way through this video. That makes my heart really happy. Again, I'm doing a lot of stream of consciousness, not only technique, and whatever I say, if it resonates with you, awesome. And if it doesn't, discard it. That's the way life goes. I love you all, and see you in the next video.